Journeymen finally announced the teams competing in the 2022 Collegiate Duals. And yes, that means we could be seeing a Vito Arujau versus Roman Bravo Young matchup. I'm going to give you the lowdown on those teams, as well as which college wrestlers placed at the U23 World Championships, how Team USA did, and there's this one other story that has been circulating the national media about a couple of college wrestlers. If you haven't heard that story, boy, I'm excited to share it with you. But first, let's talk about the National Collegiate Duals and the polls for it. So these are happening December 19th and 20th in New Orleans, Louisiana. You can watch on Rockfin live online, but these are the team pools competing. I'll explain how this event works if you're unfamiliar with it in just a second. But first, in the red pool, Northern Iowa, Lock Haven, in Ohio State, Lehigh, Cal Poly, and NC State. Those are all the red pool. In the other pool, the other side, the blue pool, you have Iowa State, Oregon State, and Cornell, North Carolina, Central Michigan, and Penn State. Again, these teams will not cross over this year just like last year. We're not going to see any red pool team wrestle any blue pool team. I'll pull these pools up again. We're not going to see Penn State wrestle Ohio State at the duels. We'll see them in the regular season dual meet, but not at the collegiate duels. We're not going to see NC State versus UNC. Not going to happen at this event. So how does it exactly work? How does it break down? Well, now that we have these matchups, we can start looking. Well, on day one is essentially a red robin, not the burger joint, a round robin, where we're going to see all the teams in the blue pool competing against each other in their separate divisions, and then the red pool. And basing off how they competed on day one, that puts them into the placement rounds on day two. So day two is just placements, and that's when we'll see the finals. So here are some exciting matchups to look at here. We're Iowa State versus Oregon State. Oregon State had a pretty solid team last year. I don't know that they're as good this year, but maybe this is where they surprise us. We're going to see Ohio State versus Lock Haven. Unconventional matchup from up north, but a good one at that. Cornell versus Iowa State. Oh my goodness, that'll be a tough one. Lehigh versus Cal Poly. In that, we could be seeing Michael Beard versus Bernie Truow wrestle at 197, which is a solid matchup. NC State and Cal Poly will be a good one, and NC State against Lehigh too. Then Penn State in North Carolina. I think the most fun part about this event is we see these unconventional matchups. And yes, one of them could be Vito Arujau versus Roman Bravo Young. But for that to happen, Penn State and Cornell would both have to win their individual pools and wrestle each other in the finals on day two. I mean, granted, it's also possible that they both lose and wrestle in a placement match, but I don't see Penn State losing this event. I don't see Cornell losing either. I think Iowa State will give them a run for their money. More likely than not, we'll see Penn State versus Penn State versus Cornell in the blue pool finals, and I think we're going to see NC State versus Ohio State in the red pool finals. I think Iowa State's definitely a threat here to watch out for, and my take on this whole event is I wish the teams would compete against each other, but I'll tell you this, I'll take what we got. I'm excited for what we got because we don't have a national dual meet championship, and this is the closest thing that we have to it, so I'm excited to see it yet again. And there were some wrestlers that competed in the U23 World Championships this past weekend, and Team USA actually had 5 medalists placing gold, silver, or bronze. Actually, we didn't have any gold on men's freestyle, but silver and bronze. And these wrestlers were Carter Sirachi and Tony Cassiope, who placed bronze, Sirachi of Penn State, Cassiope of Iowa, Trent Hidley of NC State, Jacob Cardenas of Cornell, and Tanner Sloan of South Dakota State all placed silver. A solid showing at this event, also considering the men's freestyle team placed 3rd overall. A solid performance and incredible. I think the nuts thing about this, and I have a couple notes on Carter Sirachi, by the way, in a second, is it's wild to me that Jacob Cardenas and Tanner Sloan are both guys who are 2 of the top guys in the world now at their weight classes in their age division and haven't even placed at the NCAA championships yet. How wild is that to think about, okay? Absolutely insane. Now, my notes about Starachi, okay, because he did place bronze at U23s. And this is coming right off of him talking trash on Kyle Dake. And basically what he was saying is he is not happy that Dake is coming to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. He feels kind of slighted by the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, that they're putting more faith in him and Dake rather than Starachi. And I understand that, okay? But I'm surprised, and I'm sure he did voice his opinions to the coaches, but I'm surprised that he started putting those opinions out on social media. And now that he plays bronze, I hope at U23s, right? It's not even at the senior world level. I hope that it gives him a little piece of humbleness, and that he has things to work on, right? Not only in folk style, but in freestyle as well. I hope that it's a point where he can take that humbleness, learn from it, and grow. And maybe he does end up beating Dake in the future. I don't know. But right now, right, Dake is one of the top guys in the entire world at any weight, at any division, right? That's just how good he is. So I hope that he learns from that. And before I get to this last big wrestling headline, I mean, just if you haven't heard this story, I'm just excited to share it with you. Let's go through a few quick lightning headlines, which is that Amit Allure, did you hear about her? Women's freestyle, Amit Allure, won her third world title of 2022. How the heck do you win your third world title? Well, this is how. It was a historic year. Not only did she just win the U23 World Championships, she won the Junior World Championships earlier in the year and the Senior World Championships as well. That is how good she is. And the question for me that comes off of this is, I mean, she's going to have a stellar career in the future at only 18 years old, is we see the success that she's having and that a lot of these women are having. Like, she seems like she could be the next best woman that we've seen ever in wrestling. Is the women and the men are training differently growing up. Men train folk style wrestling. Women train freestyle because that is what's offered to them. And now that we're seeing the success that she's having from having wrestled freestyle now on the national or on the world stage, it begs the question, should the men be wrestling freestyle if they want to dominate on the world stage? Because typically the men, they grow up wrestling folk style. They make a transition to freestyle in high school, college, maybe even after that, some of them. And it's just the rest of the world is training freestyle their entire lives. Now, my take on this is no, I think, I mean, yes, if that's their only goal, but like, I don't think we should be changing up men's folk style, the men's freestyle in college. That's just my opinion, but please let me know. Leave a comment. Do you think the men should be training freestyle from a young age? The other thing that released over the weekend was the Big Ten Network TV schedule. Now, if you have cable, maybe you're excited about this. If not, you're like, oh, whatever. Like, I'm not going to be able to watch some of these dual meets anyway. But airing on the Big Ten Network this season is actually a lot of exciting matches. I mean, you're going to get basically your big events, right? Your Ohio State versus Penn State, your Iowa versus Penn State, Michigan versus Iowa, Wisconsin versus Nebraska. You're getting all those duels, right? But the other big events that are happening, which I think we should note here, are Iowa State versus Iowa. That's a big one in December, which I don't think has previously aired on the Big Ten Network. We're also getting Arizona State at Nebraska, Oklahoma State at Iowa, then, of course, the Big Ten Championships. I don't remember typically getting all of these extra matches, and I think that I'm pretty excited about it, to tell you the truth. Now, let's talk about this last big headline here, which is, wow, Grizzly Bear attacks 2 wrestlers. Have you heard this story yet? Because these wrestlers literally fought for their lives, and wrestling had a pretty big part in helping to save them. This story came from ESPN, but it's been in all the national headlines. And basically what happened is these 2 wrestlers from Northwest College, which is in Wyoming, survived this bear attack. They were hiking, they were out in around Yellowstone, looking and hiking the woods with a few other teammates as well for these elk and deer antlers. The wrestlers were Brady Lowry and Kendall Cummings. and they were looking for these antlers, and all of a sudden they start coming across this signage showing like there are a lot of bears here, and the one wrestler said, hey, like, let's get out of here. Like, there are a lot of bear signs, more so than anywhere else, so maybe we should back up. And kind of in that instant, and this is all coming from the story, if you want the full article, I recommend checking it out on ESPN. It's crazy, but they said, let's get out of here. A bear started charging at them. They said this was an 8-foot-tall, 500-pound grizzly bear and started charging. And let me tell you, I went to the Great Smoky Mountains this past April, and I saw about 25 different bears, different sightings, and they were from a distance. The closest one to me was like 25 feet, but I was kind of like elevated and away from them and not like fearing for my life. But man, these bears are big and they are scary, and I would not want one charging at me. But these two guys, after the bear started attacking Lowry, the one wrestler, Cummings ended up coming in, and what he said in this article on ESPN was, I didn't want to lose my friend. It was bad. There was a big old bear on top of him. I could have run and potentially lost a friend. And let me just say, nobody would have blamed him if he ran away like to help save his own life in a crazy instance like that, right? It's fight or flight. He said, I could have lost a friend or get that bear off of him and save him. Can you believe that? And he did. He started attacking the bear, hitting it, kicking it, pulling its hair. And from an article he shared with Flow Wrestling, and like, I don't know, I wasn't there for this attack, but this is kind of what they said, and this is what I'm picturing is like literally a wrestling match with a bear. I'm not trying to make like light of this situation, but he said it was pretty horrifying. When it was on top of me, I was short neck protecting my head. I'm like picturing him like kind of in a stance, and the one wrestler yelled, elbows in. Again, I don't know if this is them kind of like joking, exaggerating the story like afterwards. I doubt it, but elbows in. And he said he was kind of passing his paws, like straight up like wrestling the bear to get him off of him. How crazy is that? And then so the bear ended up leaving and then coming back, attacking again until they got him off of them. The one wrestler ended up getting the other teammates that were with them, going to get help and medical attention. And what this ended up happening was he ended up getting 60 staples to the head, that was Cummings, in 300 stitches on his body. And he saved his friend's life. These two survived a bear attack. What a story. What a story. And they said that they are now going to have this bond for life. Yeah. If you're sharing like this bear attack and you survive that, I'm so happy that both of these guys survived this attack and were able to tell the tale. Now, I know it's a tough transition away from this, but if you want to check out my weight-by-weight previews I've been doing, I'm releasing my heavyweight previews. Those guys aren't quite as big as the bears that these guys fought off, but they're still pretty big. That's coming out this week, but I just released 197 if you want to check that out.